Hello, curiosity devoted thinkers. It's Ellie here today to say hello and to ask you. Did you just hear that? That was Lola going, oh, big long groan because Mummy started saying hello, which means it's not going to end now for who knows how long my waffle time is going to be today. Sorry, darling. I won't say her name because otherwise she'll get up and start licking me incessantly. But I heard you. Okay, all right. Let me start this again. Hello. This is Ellie. I'm here again today with my groany dog. And I have a question for you. Is it all getting a bit too much? Because sometimes it's getting a bit too much, isn't it? And it's particularly hard to switch off at night. When we're stressed out, the thing we need the most in life is to rest and relax and to shut off our brain so that we don't think about all the things that are stressing us out. But then, while we're busy, we might be doing some kind of, I don't know, cleaning up a chore or a hobby or talking to someone or driving around or watching a movie or playing a board game or whatever it is that we're doing. Whatever it is taking our mind off it, even if we are kind of preoccupied. But then when we go to bed, it's torture because there's nothing to distract us. And so we may even be exhausted. We may have been falling asleep in front of the TV or something like I think a lot of people do. I'm starting to get to the point in life, I think it's my age, where I see the beginning of a movie and then it ends really weirdly and I realize that I've had autoplay on and I've actually watched the beginning of one movie, fallen asleep, and then ended up waking up to the end of a different movie. That's really embarrassing, but I have caught myself doing that a few times. I can't believe I confessed to that. But then, you fall asleep in front of the TV, but the stress thing means you go to bed and suddenly there's nothing to distract you. And you just cannot stop thinking and going around and around and around. And what do? We pick up our mobile phone or cell phone, depending on what continent you live in, and check our messages or look to see if we're missing out on anything. And that's the doom scrolling thing that everyone's talking about. It's probably the hardest thing to stop from doing, particularly when we're stressed out. All it's really doing is feeding our anxiety and making it even worse. And it's also giving us that sense of fragmentation, which is the exact opposite of how we should be feeling. When things are becoming stressful, when life is getting tough, when we feel as though we're overwhelmed, the most important thing is to be able to truly connect on a human level with people who are there in a supportive capacity. And being in bed alone or even with someone else, but being in bed in the middle of the night, doom scrolling on your mobile phone is the exact opposite of what we should be doing in order to feel that spiritual connection. It's also really bad for you. It's bad for you health-wise and psychologically. So, physiologically, psychologically, and also spiritually. It crowds out the quietness in your mind that allows you to kind of feel your intuition. So it numbs the intuition and it replaces it with a whole bunch of noise that may feel as though it's intuitive, but it's not. It's just chatter. And I've actually done an episode on the difference between this psychological chatter and true intuition, which I will link in the description box because they are very different, even though sometimes we can fall for the chatter and think that it's an intuitive sense or something instinctive, but it's not. It's chatter, and you can tell the difference. It just takes a bit of practice. The psychological cost that doom scrolling has is that it spikes our sense of vigilance, something that I've talked about here in my book, Truth Lies in Twilight. This hypervigilance, particularly when it comes to the manner in which Americans have been kind of trained by their environment to be hypervigilant, is something that was predicted in a prophecy that I saw in the 1980s. You think to yourself, what does prophecy have to do with all this nuts and bolts stuff? But that's the reason why I'm so obsessed with that prophecy, because it does have so much to do with all the nuts and bolts stuff. And anywho, there are so many theories dating back even to the ancient tribes, say, for example, the Australian indigenous First People or indigenous Aboriginal tribes, that say that sleep is where we actually regain our wisdom, and our teachings from our ancestors. If you're not getting good sleep and you're not dreaming, then you're not experiencing that spiritual reset that is required in the very same way that you get your physical reset, where the tissue repair is taking place and the healing is taking place over the period of sleep and dreaming. It's really important. Sleep also consolidates your memory, all of the things that have been flying around during the day in your mind. This is where you might start getting very symbolic dreams that help you to unravel some of the things that are still unresolved from the day's expeditions, or from previous waking moments, so that you can move forward with clarity. It's actually really important. It also recalibrates your nervous system. So if we can't sleep and we can't do it in a solid, reliable way that's healing for us on the physiological, spiritual and psychological levels, then we're not doing ourselves very much justice. The bottom line is that sleep provides us with clarity and courage and resilience, and we need to do it. But instead, what we often do is we doom scroll, because that's what our anxiety sort of instinctively makes us do. We're picking up our mobile phones in the middle of the night next to the bed because we can't sleep. But all that really happens is it opens up a world of unexpected information that could even make it harder for us to sleep. I've fallen for this a few times in my life where I can't sleep for whatever reason, and so I check my emails. And you know what? It's always a bad idea, because if you do that, you never know what's going to be in your inbox, and it could very well end up being worse than what you went to bed worrying about. And so it's just a good idea just to turn it off. I actually had a plan for today's episode where I was going to try and find a way to encourage this kind of reprogramming of ourselves so that we can make a manual reset of our bedtime routine or something, and just, or even if we're having trouble sleeping and we're tempted to pick up the mobile phone, that we cut that routine dead in its tracks by getting up and stretching or breathing or taking a sip of water out in the kitchen, or writing a line in a journal, or recording our thoughts on our phone or something. But then I thought, to be honest, sure, I could have done that. It would have opened up opportunity for a video. It would have created some talk space. But is it actually going to work? No. And the reason for that, if I have to be really honest, is trying to reprogram ourselves manually. That takes discipline. And the last thing that I have at 12 o'clock at night or 1 o'clock in the morning or whatever it is when I can't sleep is discipline. So I don't know about you, but trying to discipline myself in the middle of the night is probably not going to work for me. So I thought to myself, sometimes it's easier to look at things in a different way. And then I had an idea. Because it's all about self-love, isn't it? It's all about self-love. And we are often too busy to love ourselves. We're too busy thinking of someone else. This is often the case for women in particular, where we are so busy loving our family or children, partner, all of the responsibilities we have. And we have been kind of trained from a young age to always be giving care to other people and loving other people, that we often forget to love ourselves, and we may very much self-neglect. So I thought, well, let's turn it around. Why don't we treat ourselves as though we are one of those people that we are caring about? A woman often will be a mother, and her first priority out of love is going to be the protection of her child. And there's an app for that. We don't even have to worry about it. There's an app for that. It's called parental control. The parental control apps that happen to be generally in the wellness category of mobile phone apps. Now, I've got an Android. I use Samsung, but some people use iPhones. I think iPhone is generally the most popular. I just happen to be addicted to Samsung because I started with the Samsung, and now I'm making my way through all the numbers of the Samsungs as I upgrade. I've just become accustomed to it. But you know what? I looked it up and I have found the easiest methods for whether it's an Android phone or an iPhone to be able to create parental controls for yourself, thinking of yourself as the kid that you love. So let's try it. What I've decided today, me being the council of decisions here on this channel, is that self-love is the key to being able to stop once and for all this doom scrolling thing that we do in the middle of the night in the hopes that it's going to help us sleep when in fact we can't. It's just going to make it worse. And that is, self-love is the key. Let's be our own loving parent, and let's use the parental powers that we would use to protect those that we love, like children, in order to protect ourselves. So let's make our phone enforce the boundaries that we want to set for ourselves for our own protection, so that willpower doesn't have to be the one doing the heavy lifting. We don't have to worry about willpower. We've just been set boundaries by this mummy love that we give to other people. Now, what I've done is I've created a scenario, a hypothetical scenario. Based on my own routine, I tend to go to bed pretty early because I'm an early bird. I love to wake up and watch the sunrise, and I'm generally pretty busy throughout the day because I like to be busy and productive, which means I'm pretty exhausted. In the evenings, I go to bed pretty early. So I've decided that, hypothetically speaking, let's use parental controls on ourselves, keeping in mind a quiet period of time between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. So I go to bed somewhere between 9 and 10, mostly because I'm a real lightweight. I do. And often what I will do is, thinking of 10 o'clock at night, I unwind from about 9 o'clock at night. So I change into my PJs, brush my teeth. I fuss around with the dog and the cat a little bit, give them a cuddle. I go outside with Lolo for her last hurrah, where she tells the neighbours, everything she needs them to know while she's chasing squirrels around the garden or whatever. Actually, not squirrels, possums around the garden, whatever it is. She's barking at something anyway that's flashing around the garden that she's chasing. And I might go to bed and read a couple of pages of a book. All that kind of good stuff that helps me to unwind in that last hour. And so to turn my mobile phone ability to doom scroll off at about 9 p.m. works for me, because by 10 p.m. I hope to be snug as a bug in a rug, and the rest of it is, history. And I wake up really early, and so why not I often wake up before 6, but why not give myself a quiet time from 9 p.m. till 6 a.m. Because even if I wake up at 5:30 in the morning, by the time I've fumbled around the house, waking up and organizing the pets and putting the kettle on and all of that, I'm not really ready to sit down and start looking at my mobile phone until about 6 in the morning. So that's what I've done. I've decided that period of time, that 9 hours, luxurious 9 hours, is going to be internet free. So this is the Android method of making that happen. And I've looked it up and I've put in the steps of what needs to be done. So if you have an Android phone, this is what you can do to be able to work on a schedule of internet downtime between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. or you can put in any time that suits you. The first thing you want to do is you want to check for the built-in programs on your phone. And in an Android phone, it probably will have a headline of digital well-being. So go into your settings mode, do a search for digital well-being, choose the bedtime mode, and set the schedule for between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. if that's available. You will also probably have options of things that should be turned off. So click, disable Wi-Fi and things like that. Alternatively, you could use the parental controls, which I think is kind of a clever way of parenting ourselves, showing that self-love. So set your schedule through the parental controls so that all of the internet required apps or even the mobile data and Wi-Fi are switched off between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. If none of this works on your Android phone, there is an app that you can download for free from whatever Play Store, Google Play Store, whichever it is that you use. and that is called Macro Droid. I should have written it up on the screen here. Macro Droid is a really simple app to use. It's an automation app. And what it does is it creates macros. So you can create as many macros as you like, but you only need 2. What you need in this exercise is you need a nighttime macro and you need a morning macro. The nighttime macro would trigger itself on at 9 p.m. And what will happen is Macro Droid, once you trigger the 9 p.m. Time slot, it'll ask you to define your actions. And what you do is you tick the actions that are disable Wi-Fi and disable mobile data. And that's it. And then you just accept it and that's it. From 9 p.m. every night, your Wi-Fi and your mobile data will automatically become inaccessible. But don't worry, you can override it. I'll tell you about that in a moment. And then you create a second macro, which triggers at 6 a.m. And you choose the actions of enabling your Wi-Fi and your mobile data, which means between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. you've got 2 macros in place that will turn off your ability to access the internet and then turn it back on at 6 a.m. But you ask me what happens if there's an emergency, because I know you're going to do that. What happens if there's an emergency? Well, I have a very simple answer for you. Emergencies don't happen on the internet. If there's an emergency, somebody will call you, and your settings will still allow you to have text messages or telephone calls. So you're not actually missing out on anything. The only thing that you're being prevented from doing is doom scrolling on the internet. Okay. But you can create any kind of routine that you want. Macro Droid is really good. You can actually even create a macro that limits who can call you or who can text you. You can limit contact from certain people, which means if you're worried about your elderly mother or your young children or your vulnerable sister or whoever it is that, you know, or a neighbor or something that you want to be available for, you can create this macro routine, a daily routine, where from 9 p.m. till 6 a.m. or whatever your nominated time slot is, everything is switched off except for contact from that person. And that way you are being parentally controlled, just like you would be if you were a child. And after a while, it will become your natural routine because you will fill up that time in other ways, which means if you can't sleep and it's 1 o'clock in the morning, you won't just grab your phone to start doom scrolling the latest doom and gloom news or opinion or, you know, email or whatever it is that happens to always appear in the middle of the night. Instead, you might just find something else to do. You might start to instinctively pick up the romance book you've got on the bedside table or whatever else, or get up and, you know, drink a cup of water and then go back to bed. You might start doing those kinds of things. Or you might just go, oh, my phone is off. I'll have to check it in the morning. And you may just roll over and go to sleep. You never know. But that was the Android opportunities to be able to parentally control your own usage. Now the iPhone method. Now the iPhone method is really simple because apparently they thought of this in advance. All you need to do is find the screen time app in your phone, and most iPhones, unless they're particularly old, will have that. You go into the settings and you choose screen time, and then you choose downtime between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. or whatever your nominated time is. This will allow only phone calls and essential apps to keep running. It will actually keep the internet open, but all of the apps associated with the internet will be blocked, which means you won't be able to look at your social media or YouTube or emails or anything like that. The internet will stay active, but it won't allow you to open any apps that use the internet, which I think is pretty good. You can also just choose which news forums or social media forums. There's so many options in the iPhone that you can actually pick and choose the ones that you want to see and the ones that you don't, which is really good. And if you want to be really strict, you can actually turn off the internet altogether during this time by using, on the more modern iPhones, this program called Shortcuts Automation. It's not available on all iPhones, but the more recent ones it is. So you go into Shortcuts, you choose Automation, and then you choose the time of the day, being 9 p.m. to 9 p.m. You set an action, which is to turn off your Wi-Fi and turn off your mobile data. And then you repeat with another automation with a 6 a.m. start where everything turns on. It's very much the same as how I described that app that you can get for Android called MacroDroid. iPhone already has that, at least the most recent models already have that built into the phone. What I really love about this idea of using the parental controls for ourselves to prevent us from doom scrolling is it trains us to naturally start developing and adopting a healthier bedtime routine and a more spiritual kind of bedtime routine as well, which will exercise benefits in lots of different ways. We will, you kind of fall asleep faster after a while, you dream more, you go into a deeper sleep, and you also self-repair more. And also, a lot of what it is, it's been all of those stresses and conflicts that have been flying around in your brain all day long will have more of an opportunity to resolve themselves through the dream network, where you actually get messages that actually help you to recognize the solution to your everyday questions that you have in life. The thing about this is it's flexible. You can do it gradually. So what you could do is you could create your settings, whether it be on iPhone or Android. You could create your settings so that it's only for like a 2-hour period. If you have trouble between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., because this has happened to me before when I had really stressful jobs, for example, sometimes I'd go to bed and it was always those passive-aggressive emails that would get me every time. I really hated those passive-aggressive emails that co-workers would send that are laced with all kinds of danger. And those kinds of things would keep me awake. I'd go to bed at 10 or 11 or something and I'd fall asleep pretty quickly. And then at 1 o'clock in the morning, I'd wake up. Maybe I had to go to the loo, or maybe I just woke up and I wouldn't be able to go back to sleep again for 2 hours or something, or 3 hours. I'm glad those days are over. What a difference a change in career makes. But that danger period, say between 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the morning, if you have trouble, you could start off by just setting your phone to be in downtime during that 3-hour period. And if it works, then extend it to a 5-hour period. And if it works, then extend it to your whole sleep time period. It's also really easy to override, whether it's Android or iPhone. If you do need, for whatever reason, which isn't kind of true, but if you do need to get onto the internet or have internet power for some reason, maybe you don't have any other way of communicating with people other than WhatsApp or Signal or something, which require an internet connection, then when you do try to go into a program that has appeared as part of your parental controls, what will happen is something like a stop sign will come up saying that you have to put in a PIN code to override it. And so all you do is you put in your PIN code to override it. And that sounds very easy, except what it does is it reminds you. It's kind of like a little slap on the hand that reminds you that you're breaking your own rules, which I think is another hurdle to cross over, which could even in itself be something that you find helpful. So at the moment, we just mindlessly roll over and pick up our mobile phone. But if we have a parental control on our phone and that stop sign comes up and says you're not permitted to do this, but you can override it with a PIN, then we have this moment of reflection where we have to kind of be true to ourselves and go, oh, am I going to break my promise to myself? Nah, and put the phone down and go back to sleep. That kind of hurdle I think could be helpful. And you can also, use a snazzy title for your programs or something. You could call it the I Love Myself Enough to Sleep app, or Less Doom, More Dreams, or something like that, or No Noise Till Morning. Those were 3 potential titles that I made up, that I would probably put on my own phone. I actually don't have this problem anymore, but I do know that I used to. And so I know what it's like to be on the other end of this discussion. Very important thing to remember, and that is what, these parental controls that are available on our phones, we use those parental controls and the downtime settings for our children because we love them. Don't we deserve exactly the same love? Somebody actually posted a question for me the other day saying, could you please post a video on why you're happy? And I thought about it, I thought, gosh, it's really complicated. But there are a million different reasons to be happy, and there are a million different layers of happiness that all kind of work together. And not grabbing something to add another layer of stress is probably one of those things. But there are a zillion reasons why I'm happy, and I'm happy to share them with you as I think of them. But this is just one. We all need a little bit of help sometimes. And the thing about technology is it's being drummed into us a lot that technology is supposed to help us, when in fact often it's not fulfilling that promise. Instead, it's kind of controlling us. But why not turn it around? Turn our relationship with technology around and find these little examples of how it actually can help us by putting us on the right path when we need it. It's such a little thing, but it might make all the difference. So I hope that this strange little episode resonated with you. I hope that if you feel that you need some kind of parental control when it comes to your nighttime usage of the internet on your phone, that you'll try this. And if not you might know someone else that needs parental control use of their phone at night. So why not send this video to them or tell them about it and suggest the same parental controls that they can impose upon themselves. And remember, it's not about being controlled, really, because you can override it. It's just about, remembering to love ourselves. And we know what it feels like to love because we do it for others. But we also deserve that same love. So why not give it to ourselves? This is Ellie, Dreams Down Under. Welcome to the new world. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share and all of those things. And I will see you again in the next episode. I love knowing you're here, and I'll see you in my dreams. In my dreams, sleeping, with the Z's. Bye.